morning. It is Thursday, July 30th, 2015. This is your morning edition on I-24 News. Coming up later today, 2 illegal buildings in the West Bank settlement of Bet El rattle Israel's democracy. Jerusalem, also known as the Holy City, prepares to host its annual Pride Parade under stringent security. And later on the show, Bedouin women, long suffering from underemployment as part of Israel's second-class community, break with tradition and actually go to work. Good morning, I'm Yael Avi, and we begin here in Israel, where the storm over 2 houses in the West Bank settlement of Bet El are continuing to stir the Israeli right-wing pot, if you may, as authorities tore down 2 illegal settler buildings on private Palestinian land that has been confiscated by the Israeli military in the late 70s. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office announced a significant expansion of Israeli settlement units in the occupied Palestinian territories. The demolition of what has become known as the Drynoff buildings in the settler community was accompanied by 2 days of scuffles between Israeli police and a group of several hundred right-wing activists. It also sparked a very, very harsh political storm within Netanyahu's fragile coalition. Much of the bile was aimed at the High Court and its justices, who are accused of ordering the demolition for political reasons. One Knesset member from the Jewish Home Party suggested sending bulldozers to the court building instead. International condemnation and, of course, demands to kill the new construction weren't late in coming. The European Union and UN Chief Ban Ki-moon said it called into question Israel's commitment to peace. The United States U.S. State Department also stated it is deeply concerned, to quote them, about the Israeli government's decision to build additional housing units, and thus Netanyahu's fragile coalition doesn't hang in the balance, but maybe portrayed to us one of the first times that it will go head-to-head with itself. Now that Netanyahu is battling the Iran deal as top of his agenda, he also has to contend to what is going on within his home. So, to try and break this down, joining me in studio this morning to answer many questions about what may lay ahead for the Israeli coalition, we are joined by freelance journalist Anat Saragusti, freshly back from Washington, D.C.
Good morning.
Great to have you with us. Also, settlement movement activist, if I may say legendary, Daniela, because I've known you for all my life nearly. Daniela Weiss, good morning to you.
Good morning to you.
And with us also I-24 News diplomatic correspondent Tal Shalev, because we cannot leave without her. So first, let's take a look at the following report about the latest from Bet El and break it down from there.
At the center of attention, 2 apartment buildings in the settlement of Bet El in the West Bank. At stake, inflaming the already tense relationship between Israel's settlement movement and the High Court. Following the decision of Israel's top court on Wednesday, the buildings in dispute, also called the Drynoff compound, were ordered demolished, despite the harsh objections of right-wing politicians and citizens. Bulldozers began carrying out the court order shortly after it was issued, and this was quickly followed by clashes between settlers and security forces. Some 10 settlers were slightly injured, a few others were detained. The events on the ground triggered a fierce political storm within the already fragile coalition, as leaders of the political right were infuriated by the High Court's decision and the involvement of IDF troops.
The High Court ruled unjustly, in a way befitting charlatans. We should ride up in a D9 bulldozer and raise the High Court of Justice to the ground. We, as a legislative system, will make sure to rein in the legalistic rule in this country and the tail that wags the dog.
Possibly to lower tensions within the government and sweeten the bitter pill, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu greenlighted the construction of 300 previously approved housing units in Bet El, as well as the planning of 500 apartments in East Jerusalem. But while trying to stay on the good side of his right-wing allies, Netanyahu's decision angered the Palestinian Authority, who said the continuation of settlement construction is ruining any chance for peace.
When the Israeli government gives the order to build these new settlement units, it declares the continuation of its war against the Palestinian people. That requires us to turn to all the legal and international organizations and works with the international community to stop this extreme right-wing government.
But either way, the chaos on the ground is now shifting to the narrow, unstable government, where many infuriated ministers are not willing to let one of the most burning issues for their electorate pass in silence.
I'll start with Tal Shalev, I-24 News diplomatic correspondent here in studio. Yesterday was actually to me, it seemed like a play of what we're going to look at when it comes to Netanyahu's coalition. Because the immediate reaction of the Israeli Prime Minister to condemnation within his own coalition with the announcement of units, et cetera, et cetera. Is that something that's going to appease the stringent voices in his coalition when it comes to Bet El?
I think in many ways this whole coalition crisis was fabricated. It wasn't a real coalition crisis, because basically the situation on the ground is like this. Since the government was formed, and even before that, there has been some kind of unofficial settlement freeze in the imposed by the Israeli government. And of course, the right-wing factions, the Jewish Home and the right-wing part, the more right-wing parts of the Likud are very unhappy with this, because you have an extreme right government who is not building in the settlement. So this created a lot of tensions. And for weeks, we've been hearing speculations in the Israeli political system that there is going to be a coalition crisis over Bet El and over Itamar, another settlement plan that hasn't been promoted in recent weeks. So basically, this whole situation was expected, and each side has been trying to make political gains over it, especially the Jewish Home, who were trying to use this as basically these 300 houses that were announced yesterday by Netanyahu were already promised 2 years ago when the Bet El Givata Ulpana neighborhood was evacuated. These were moreover, they were agreed between Netanyahu and Naftali Bennett a few months ago that these houses would be promoted. So it's not like we have any significant settlement expansion gain, but everyone wants to present their own achievement. At the same time, there was, I think, actually an encouraging phenomena regarding the MK Moti Yogev from the Jewish Home, his statement, his very controversial statement about the Supreme
Bulldozers
Court.
Having to
what was encouraging about it was that he was condemned from almost everyone in the right-wing government, meaning that there are some limits to the discourse regarding the Supreme Court in Israel, even though it is a right-wing government that has declared a battle on the Supreme Court. But there is a legitimate discourse that one cannot move out of.
One cannot move out of them. Daniela Weiss, Sattler activist, I've seen you nodding your head here next to him, Tal Shalev, agreeing with some of her points. I want to ask about the settlement freeze and the thing that was actually promised to the settler community, so to speak, yesterday. Will that appease? And when it comes to the Supreme Court, is there really a feeling that it needs to be taken on as a battle head-to-head between, you know, the settler community and one of the echelons of a democratic state?
Okay, I'll refer to two major comments of yours, Amin, and also to you. First of all, I weigh things in light of whether, yes or no, the settlements and the settlement movement is achieving its goals. And I don't see, of course, I regretted very much the bulldozer scenes, and it aggravated me so much that I really couldn't see it. Now you've presented it again. But all in all, I see that it's not only the 300 units that were indeed promised and recycled for political reasons, but also another 500. And I always say that Obama, with all his pressure and criticism, helps us a lot. Because when he combines the 300 Jews that live in East Jerusalem and the 400 Jews that live in Judea and Samaria, that is 700,000 Jews. It's a huge number. And at the same time, he says that he's very much against the settlements. So it's 700,000 Jews that, what does he want to do it? The expulsion from Spain was of 100,000, so he wants to do it with 700,000, no chance. So as far as settlement strength is concerned, we got stronger, and the addition of 500 to the 300 is another present.
So you feel that basically this has been a victory for the settlement movement?
Definitely. It's painful, but I would... We use in Hebrew an expression, Chavlei Mashiach. It's like giving birth. It's painful. Well, these days, births are a little less painful.
Oh, no, they're painful.
But they are painful. But you give birth to something that is a new life. This is the way I regard it. And with the masses and with the growth, and I see I'm going to be great-grandmother to a settler in Samaria. So, I mean, things have changed, and I came there. You said you know me for many years. I came there 40 years ago, and it was a very, very desolate area. There were Arab villages, but very, very tiny, not as it all developed since the return of Jews to the heart of our homeland.
Anat, I'm asking you, Anat Sargosi, you're a freelance journalist, you're identified with the left. When you're listening to this, you know, I don't know what goes through your head, but do you think that Israel, to begin with, democratically, first of all, if this was a planned idea and, you know, and the settler movement has gained what it needs, is, you know, can the Supreme Court stop things? Is this a battle of democracy within Israel? And has the settler movement won?
Definitely won.
Definitely won.
Definitely won. I mean, you could listen to Daniela Weiss. I see it as a play, you know, in which everybody has a role to play. The Supreme Court has its role as the guard of the democracy. Yeah, the settlers has their role, and they're, you know, promoting and pushing forward this whole thing of which is flourishing, you know, the settlements. The government has its role, and the international community has its role. And at the end of the day, they win. They win all the way. They win. I mean, everybody plays and everybody shouts and everybody say, wow, save democracy. We are collapsing. Democracy is what it is. You know, it's shaken, as you said at the beginning. It's shaken. And the more we go, I mean, they ridicule the whole decision of the Supreme Court yesterday when they decided to, you know, give permits for more units. How many? 300 units? 800 units altogether. Part of it in Jerusalem and part of it in the West Bank.
Beyond Obama's lines.
So what?
Beyond Obama's lines.
Yes.
So what is the meaning of this whole Supreme Court decision?
Is the international
nothing. And the international community is shouting and said, by the international law, the whole thing is illegal. This is illegal. The whole settlement is illegal. Now, you have this poor Palestinian man. This is his land, right? Private land. Now, they demolished these houses. There is no way that he can build anything there, that he can execute this Supreme Court rule to his benefit.
In the same place.
How can you rebuild in the same place?
Because it was a legitimate.
Not the
specific.
The Palestinian.
Yes, of course.
I wonder.
Because
this will be a real exception.
Look at it. Look,
yeah.
It's a very simple fact. It's not a philosophical or moral dispute between us. It's part of the tfisa, the whole
conception.
The
grabbing. The confiscation.
I say.
No, the confiscation.
A confiscation of government land, or in this case, you claim, other people claim that it's private, but leave this alone. It's part of Bet El, and it is the same, under the same category, as you said, according to your philosophy.
So you will not be able to build there?
Of course not.
But that's what I'm saying.
But we are going to build.
I know.
On the same,
so
because it got license.
That's
so
right.
we won from all sides, except for the pains of birth.
So you ridicule the whole thing
labor.
Of democracy. You know, democracy is ridiculed. And by the international community, there is no differentiation between state land and private land. I mean, it's illegal.
I'm wondering with Tal Shalev then. Let's move this forward to September. Let's say Netanyahu goes to September to the UN, and we're seeing, you know, the settler movement winning, something that's not going to gel well with the international community. If there's any type of process between Israel and the Palestinian Authority to be kick-started again. Can that even happen in September in the UN Security Council when everybody's waiting for some sort of a renewed process when, on the ground, we're looking at, you know, 700 new units, which the Palestinians are saying that, you know, this is a sign that the Israelis are not sincere.
Well, I think I'm sorry to disappoint you. I'm not sure that September will be this timetable. Everyone's waiting for September at the UN General Assembly, but the timetable for the Iran deal, which has basically been freezing everything on the Israeli-Palestinian peace process, will not be over. It'll only be over the Senate vote, the Congress vote on the Iran deal is only between 7 to 10 days before the General Assembly opens. President Obama, who promised a reevaluation of his policy regarding the Israeli and Palestinian peace process, is still doing that. He hasn't, I don't even think they've moved forward one bit in their reevaluation of the foreign policy. They've been doing it, they announced it in April after the elections. And so there's a lot of pressure we're hearing from the French and the Europeans, but basically nothing really moves forward in this process without the Americans. So I'm not sure that September will be that date that everyone's waiting for. And at the same time, there's something I think frustrating for the international community, because in many ways, as Anat said, everyone plays their role. So there's a settlement expansion announcement, and immediately you have the expected condemnations from the international community. Do you think anyone hears it in Israel? I don't even think it makes the headlines. The EU, the UN, and the US all deplored. I don't even think it makes the headlines because it's it's not even news. It's not even news.
And it's repetitive. It's repetitive.
Exactly.
They pull from the drawer the same condemnation and they put it.
And the international community also sometimes shoots themselves in the leg because, for instance, just 2 days ago, the German government deplores an announcement for 1,000 new units in the West Bank. So you go and look, what exactly are they meaning? They get lost in all of the reports about construction.
Thank God.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad. There you go.
Of course, because I mean, like when we build on the mountain ridge, then this is legitimate. I mean, nobody speaks about it. But if you build we have 250 different living settlements, cities. I'm speaking about the Jewish ones. So if you add 30 here and 30 there and 20 there, tiny additions, then 30 double 100, then a lot more. And the birth rate.
She had a vision, and she executed her vision. And this is amazing. You know, when you look 40 years back and you zoom out of it, you know, everybody plays a role, and they won. At the end of the day, they won.
I would like to refer to the Supreme Court because you asked about it.
I was up to the Supreme Court. Before you continue, I just have a question for you, which is so naive, because you don't remember me, but we have known each other for 20 years.
Don't say that I don't remember. It's embarrassing. No? Not
nobody
directly to our spectators.
But that said, it's a naive question. Settler movement winning. You're sitting here agreeing to it. And that's Gorstein, a journalist from the left, is saying, yes, she's right. There we go. What about the Palestinian community in that area? Let's say, what about the people living there? Where do you envision them going?
Why going? Why going?
And what do you want them to do?
Live in the homeland of the Jews. That was the choice.
Or without political rights.
Political rights is another issue, but I don't want them to go. I want Jews to come. I want them to know that the land of Israel is the land of Jacob. Israel is Jacob. Just let's clarify it. Rights, human rights, definitely. So sovereignty, choice,
if you take
the ability
their lands and
to
you forbid them from building, so where is the human right?
Building, we prevent the Arabs from building.
Here is a land of a given Palestinian, one Palestinian man, and you prevent him from building on his own private land.
Let's bring this to a real court and not to the Supreme Court of Justice. A real court is when you bring a document, excuse me, I'll give it back to you, and then you read the document. In the Supreme Court
So you bring the Bible to this court?
No, definitely, the Bible is always here, but when you bring to the Supreme Court of Justice, then you expect justice. So after these buildings, the drying of buildings,
were being demolished.
No, before that, they got license as legitimate buildings. But we confuse the spectators with all this. But you asked me another question. You asked me about
the Supreme Court, which you said the Supreme Court of
before,
Justice.
Yes. I'll refer to it. Look at it. In the past few years, the things of high value could be brought to the Supreme Court. The destruction of the Gaza settlements, a northern part of Shomron, and also the liberation of the Mechablim, of the terrorists.
Really,
these are human issues. Somehow, President Shimon Peres signed the release of 1,000 killers. Where was the court of justice?
Yeah, but also
disappeared.
The Israeli Prime Minister named as Benjamin Netanyahu has signed the release of what many people will deem, with terrorists as prisoners.
We're speaking about, both, whoever signed
because it's part of negotiations and it's part of the process.
So let's be fair and let's not speak about justice. It's politics. So this issue
you accuse the Supreme Court of being political.
It's absolutely not legitimate to give political issues to the Supreme Court. This is why the evacuation of the Jews from Gaza wasn't accepted. The whole issue wasn't accepted as an issue legitimate for the Supreme Court.
The court
so wasn't the release of the Arab prisoners, terrorists. Why this? Yes, when we. Now we have, by the way, I disagree with you that it's a fragile government. Rabin's government of 1961 accepted the Oslo Accords, and it was legitimate, it wasn't fragile, and he changed history, unfortunately, in this respect, from my point of view. But why now, when it is so clear, and I refer to it so clearly, that it is a clear political issue, how come the Supreme Court of Justice refers to it? It's not an issue of justice. It's a political issue that Netanyahu wants to enhance the Jewish strength in the mountains of Judea and Samaria. That's what he wants to do. Instead of doing it directly my way...
He does that regardless. He does it regardless of the Supreme Court
rule. As you said, he plays a double...
So that's why I'm saying this is a play in which everybody has its role.
Good for him. It's smart. I mean, as a prime minister, he does this double role in a very smart way.
Yeah, he wins it all.
And he wins
it all because he wins, the support of the right wing in Israel, which is a growing support of the right wing, and he wins the kind of support of the left wing because he condemned what's his name, Moti Yagev was saying yesterday against the Supreme Court. So he got it all.
Listen, it's a fascinating discussion that I think can go into many tiny minutiae, but in many ways I think that one thing has been agreed here is that the settler movement is actually waking up to a morning that they're very happy with.
Right.
We will proceed.
Very small price of 2 houses that were not inhabited.
That were inhabited and getting a lot of
my friends were the whole 2 days they were in Sanur in the northern part of Sharon, and my greatest satisfaction was when the army officers addressed a few of my friends, young women from my movement, Nachala, and they said, "How have you reached this mountain? Where have you come from?" They said, "We walked the whole night and we came."
And that is the left in Israel completely done. I mean,
it seems so. I mean, it's very painful to say that, but it seems like we need to break this paradigm of left and right because there are so many issues. And she's right when she talks about the disengagement from Gaza, when the left was completely ignorant, to the human side of the settlers who were uprooted from their homes. And the left was completely, numb about it. They said nothing. The Supreme Court said nothing. It was a political maneuver of Ariel Sharon, which was really, he broke the Likud, he established Kadima. Everything was, he shuffled everything in the political system to his benefit. And everybody was silent about it. So I think we need to break the paradigm of left and right. It doesn't work anymore that way.
Tal shall have a very solid Netanyahu government. Am I right in saying that Daniela Weiss has actually corrected me and put me in my place? And in that respect, the Netanyahu government is something that seems very strong in wake.
I think the Netanyahu government is fragile. It's been fragile to begin with, but the problem will not dissolve over anything that has to do with the settlements. It will dissolve over dysfunctions in the parliament if it does. The assumption in the Israeli political system, we hear it from Victor Lieberman on the record, you hear it from Yair Lapid and Moshe Kahlon off the record, is that by January there will be elections. And even though, well, sometimes sometimes prophecies have a tendency to.
I can't believe we've got two people from the left and the right going, please, no more elections. Just no more elections.
Journalists are asking no more elections.
For journalism, it's good.
We're collapsing.
Let me tell you, I spent a few days in the Knesset, and I saw the way the people ran for the votes, and I enjoyed it, because in previous terms, some went abroad, even in the midst of the term. Some were lazy to come. Some didn't come to the Knesset at all. Now everybody's on the alert. Yeah. So you see democracy at work.
Which means a very active parliament.
What you call fragile, I call strong.
Yeah, but democracy at work, Daniela, also needs a Supreme Court of Justice.
Okay, so
it really does. It does. You cannot have democracy without that.
To deal with justice and not with politics.
Yeah, but you can't define what justice is.
We can. You know, my friends said from the right, they said no chance whatsoever that the decision of the court will be different, because it will be too strong a blow to the left. Period. That
Supreme Court is getting weaker and weaker, and if you look in the perspective of time, many of these decisions were in favor of the state and the settlers, and less so in the favor of the Palestinians. I mean, this is definitely true if you evaluate each and every Supreme Court rule over the years vis-a-vis the occupation. And I mean, the Palestinians didn't get their days in Supreme Court. Definitely not. I mean, you could see it on the ground. I mean, reality shows that. So the fact that yesterday they decided what they decided, you know, this was an exception.
Yeah,
this was not. This is not.
The general wind that blows from the Supreme Court is that we are occupiers in our own homeland, and this is what's the wind.
This is an international by the international law definition
in the Jewish court.
Yeah, but
so why should
everybody adopt
Israel doesn't stand alone in a world that doesn't have other countries. There is an international.
In our homeland, we stand alone.
It's a legal definition, Daniela. It's a legal definition. It's not a political. By the international law.
By the world.
But we are part of the international community.
The country is also based in the world.
At certain points, points, like the Palestinians appealed to the UN against the decisions of the Oslo Accords. So when a certain people or certain nation protects its interests, at times, at crucial times, historical times, they decide what is good for them and not what the world thinks, especially in face of so much
and then you find yourself isolated today. You find yourself isolated from the world.
And isolated and strong.
We have 30 seconds left. Sadly, women, I just want to say that we kept this very civilized and good for us. Thank you all for being with me this morning. When we get back, the City of Gold prepares to wave the rainbow flag in honor of the annual Pride Parade. We'll take a closer look of what that parade really means in the city that is so holy to every religion. Stay with us when we get back. We'll take a close look first, as in every morning, the morning headlines. Good morning, I-24 News Morning Edition. What is today?
I'm pretty sure it's July 30th.
What do you care? You're going on vacation.
That's right. That's right. Better believe it.
Yeah, yes, I do. Ami Kaufman, the man, this is a burgundy.
Burgundy,
I think it's a burgundy bow tie.
It's
definitely.
Straight.
It's straight burgundy, you know. Okay. And the blue shirt and the news you've missed while scanning the headlines.
Right. Okay. So we're going to start with good old Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. It went down in March 8th, 2014, 239 people killed. Now, they thought that it looks like we found some debris on an island called Reunion. It's a French island in the Indian Ocean that is 3,000 miles away from where it's thought that it crashed. Nobody's really sure if this is it's supposed to be a wing flap.
Yes,
but it does belong to a Boeing 777. Now, what the people are saying is that if it landed in this island called the Reunion,
exactly,
it probably the crash happened probably off of northwestern Australia, off the coast of northwest Australia. But so far, search efforts have been focused in southwestern Australia.
Yeah.
So it's a totally different area. the oceanographers are looking at the tides and the currents and all that stuff.
And how could it have
gotten to a reunion? So it's not 100% sure that this is a wing flak from that plane.
From that plane, that it is yet to be understood where exactly the debris from this plane, if it is indeed that.
Yeah.
I think just for those families, because we've spent weeks covering that story in the studio, just for those families, some form of closure, if indeed that is the plane.
Still no closure. They're saying to the New York Times that they just all they want is just some closure. Tell us if that is a piece from the plane. That's all we want to know.
That just seemed to have disappeared in thin air. Yes.
Yesterday we talked about Turkey and we talked about NATO giving its sort of blessing, its support for the Turkish offensive in both Syria against ISIS and not exactly against the Kurds, but because Turkey is using this whole thing against ISIS as a way to ramp up its efforts.
And that's a mild understatement. Yeah, they're basically lumping ISIS and the Kurdish PKK and their part with the Peshmerga within Syria as one group.
Well, today I'm telling you that they didn't waste any time. They hit 6 targets in what is called the heaviest assault since the campaign started. 6 PKK targets. This is the biggest assault that we've seen so far. The Iraqi in Iraq, of course.
Right.
The Iraqi response is that they condemn these attacks as a dangerous escalation and an assault on Iraqi sovereignty. And as you said, a lot of critics are saying that this is using some kind of linkage.
I think it would be interesting to see if we hear international condemnation in any way, shape, or form, because it's also no secret that last week it was announced that the United States has been allowed by Turkey
to use two Air Force bases,
which is very important for the United States to use those air bases.
Yeah.
And it seems like what was exchanged in that is basically the rights and the plights of the PKK.
Yeah, it's really a double-edged sword, because if you're letting Turkey also hit the Kurds are a very valuable player in the war against ISIS.
They're the only ones on the ground. They're the only boots on the ground in many ways that are making any gains against ISIS.
So I don't see how this is going to work.
Yeah, Middle East. Yes.
There are reports that Mullah Omar, the head of the Taliban leader, has died, apparently in Pakistan in 2013. No statement yet from the Taliban, but we do have a report about this. Let's see it.
Let's take a look.
Mullah Muhammad Omar, the spiritual leader of the Taliban, is dead, according to Afghan officials.
We're still in the process of assessing those reports, and as soon as we get any more accurate information or authentication of those reports, we're going to let the media and the people of Afghanistan know about it.
Sources within the Afghan intelligence agency claim the one-eyed Taliban leader may have been dead for 2 or 3 years. The Taliban did not immediately comment about the report regarding Omar, who has been declared dead many times before. However, they are expected to make a statement. In addition to leading the Taliban, Omar was also an al-Qaeda ally, a known supporter of former al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden. When the U.S. invaded Afghanistan following 9/11 and the Taliban was overthrown, Omar went into hiding and has not been seen since. This has prompted numerous rumors of his death, which the Taliban has denied time and again. News of his death comes at a difficult time for the movement, which is deeply divided over whether to pursue peace talks with the Afghan government with the aim of ending the 14-year war. While the news has yet to be confirmed, reports of his death raise questions about who will replace him and lead the movement.
The report ended with who will replace Mullah Omar.
Yeah.
I was about to end it with, it is Thursday, it is summer, and we're allowed to be slightly sarcastic. And does it really matter? Because because the movement, the Taliban, is very strong. One can say many things about what happened in 2001 when the Americans entered Afghanistan, but it didn't eradicate the Taliban.
Did not at all.
Yeah.
I just want to remind you that about a week ago, I told you about there was an Eid. He gave his annual Eid blessing. Mullah Omar gave his Eid on the web. No recording. Yeah. But it was a very important blessing because he was blessing the talks between the Taliban officials and the Afghan government.
Interesting.
Who gave that blessing a week ago?
Was it him? Was it someone else? The conspiracy theorist in the heart of every journalist is why maybe that had something to do with the timing of now announcing yet again his death.
Yes.
A week later.
Good point.
There we go. Okay.
There are some reports that Israel struck some targets in Syria and Lebanon. 3 Syrian militiamen were reportedly killed in the strike in the Syrian Golan, and 6 people were wounded in Lebanon. We're seeing a lot of action in the Syrian Golan Heights. Israelis believe it's part of a terrorist cell that was built by Samir Kuntar, a terrorist who killed a family in Naharia a few decades ago.
And
when he was released
5 years ago?
About that, released, and since then is being backed by Syria and Iran, and doing some...
And this is not the first time. One needs to mention also that Israel strikes targets in those Golan Heights, as you said, over the course of the last 2 years, which also shows how fragile the whole Syria war, civil war is to every country bordering.
Exactly.
Yes.
Amnesty International with a report saying there's strong evidence of Israel war crimes on Black Friday in the Gaza war in August. This has happened on August 2014, just about a year ago, when Lieutenant Hadar Goldin was taken captive by Hamas operatives, and the IDF went into what is called the Hannibal Directive. The Hannibal Directive, which allows intensive, massive military use of force, and about
to try and retrieve a missing soldier.
And on that Black Friday, 130 people were killed. So Amnesty is saying there is strong evidence that Israel was doing some war crimes on that day. Over to Europe and the Euro Tunnel, 3,500 migrants tried to cross the Euro Tunnel from France into England in just 2 days. This is an amazing crisis. One person, by the way, died while he was trying to do this. But since the beginning of the year, 37,000 people have been stopped at the Eurotunnel trying to cross.
I don't think there is enough times that we need to mention and touch on, and I'm glad you brought that, the refugee crisis, that a lot of them coming obviously also from this region, where we're sitting, apropos Syria or Africa. What a huge crisis it is for the continent of Europe, and and the numbers also of these people dying. In sea, at sea, or them just trying to get to safe places, storming as we see the channel. No, terrifying.
They're going to have to try to deal with solving the problems elsewhere. This is just, putting a Band-Aid on it.
Exactly. Very important. All the time we have for press, but not the time to let you go. You're locked in studio as we move along. The Negev area in southern Israel is home to some 200,000 Bedouins, a traditional conservative Arab ethnocultural group descending from nomadic tribes. The Bedouin community is ranked at the bottom of the socioeconomic ladder in Israel, with high unemployment levels, and perhaps those who suffer the most, as always, are the Bedouin women, traditionally constrained to the house and depending on their male family members. But times are changing. Earlier this week, I-24 News correspondent Shachar Peled met with a few women who are determined to carve their own independent way in the world. Let's take a look at that report, break it down from there.
The mosque in the Bedouin village of Hura in southern Israel is a place of religious spirituality. It's also the workplace of some 30 women, a rare but gradually growing sight in the Bedouin sector.
When your workplace is inside a mosque, both places provide such a sense of security that motivates you to come to work.
Traditionally nomadic Arab tribes who live in the southern Negev region in Israel, some 200,000 Bedouins are mostly conservative communities with strong family constraints for women to stay at home and look after the children. The women at the Hura Beza Communications Service Center defy that tradition.
In the first, they didn't accept that I am working, but now they do. Because I didn't let them or the other people, they say to my family, she's a girl, she mustn't work. I am a woman, I have to go work. It's not just sitting at home, bring babies and that's it.
20-year-old Asma Kabua, the first woman in her family to drive and study, applied to work when her family struggled financially.
I decided to help them and help myself and help my sister also. When they saw me, they want what I have. So now my little sister is study with me and the old one. People dislike that I go work. Some of them jealous. Now they, yes, now they look to me and they say, you have a car, you are a work, you are a land, really? You? Yes, I am. Why not?
Our greatest achievement is that the service center is managed entirely by Bedouin women who understand the culture and complexities of working women.
It's a pleasure to be in such a position, and it empowers the Bedouin women around me to see how it's possible to enter as a service representative and quickly be promoted to managerial roles.
Gradually interested in a better quality of life and better education for their children, Bedouin communities slowly but surely understand that progress sometimes overpowers tradition. But what happens when the women are further promoted and become senior managers and supervisors?
This is a new situation which isn't trivial. Back in my village, I am the only woman in a managerial position. But people accept this with time. We are a society going through change all the time.
Realizing the low rates of Arab women participating in the labor market, the Israeli Ministry of Economy has set targets of growth and supportive programs.
We are more targeted on women in this because it's more hard. You have difficult culture difficulties, skills difficulties, barriers.
80% of Salah Ibrahim's clients are Bedouin. Feeling obligated to employ the local population, he is often challenged by his 186 Bedouin employees who joined the workforce for the first time.
Saturday is our most crowded day. Suddenly, 8 cashiers didn't show up for their shifts. One said her husband didn't allow her to go to work today. Another said her father's car broke down. They're still not independent enough and lack work discipline.
But the tide is turning, and women like Asma, Yasmin and Miriam are paving the way through the obstacles and into self-confidence, equal family support and independence.
Joined in studio by Orna Akkad, activist and women's rights activist, and also via Skype we're joined from Kalanswa by Dr. Dabith Abu Ras, Executive Director of the Abraham Fund Initiative, which worked to promote coexistence between Israeli, Jewish, and Arab population. But I want to start with you first, Orna, because I'm looking at this and women's rights, and within the Bedouin community, it's very hard to achieve to be able to go out to work if you're a woman. We don't understand how much, right?
It is very hard. It's very traditional society, and there are very strong rules.
And not only that, explain to us the discrimination towards, women are discriminated in any society, I have to say. Also in Western society, neither you or I have broken any glass ceilings yet. But within Israel, Bedouin women, they're like fourth-rate citizens, aren't they?
Yeah.
How so?
First, by the nature, they are mothers and they have kids and they have to, this is first. Second, it's the education.
Right.
Most of the women are not educated and they finish school. If they go to school, they are going only to elementary school and after that they stop. So there is a lack of education. And there is multiple marriage, like if someone get married to 4 women. So mostly they don't have instruments to go to work. So they have to learn and to get in the mind to empower to go to work.
Does the state help in any way, shape or form to bring the Bedouin women out to work?
Unfortunately,
Not at the top of the agenda.
No. They have small groups that are trying to empower the women to teach them how to go to work or how to use instruments of working.
In that respect. Joining us via Skype from Kalanswa also is Dr. Dabith Abu Ras, as we said, the Executive Director of the Abraham Fund. Dr. Abu Ras, I want to thank you for being with us. Good morning to you first.
Good morning.
When it comes to promoting the rights of Bedouin women in a community that is lacking so many resources in so many ways and is really bottom of the agenda, sadly, when it comes to the Middle East or the state of Israel, looking at their plights. What needs to be done more? And is there enough, do you think? Obviously, the Abraham Fund is the one dealing with promoting coexistence, but what more needs to be done?
Actually, the Abraham Fund initiatives also promoting job opportunities for Bedouin women, for Arab women in large. We started a project called Partners for Life 8 years ago. We started a pilot in Arab towns in the Negev in Galilee, and we showed the government that Arab women are seeking jobs, and this is what happened. And I'm happy that the rate of women engaged in the Israeli labor force is increased. Right now, it's jumped from 18% to 28% today. 28% of the Arab women are engaged in the job labor force. In the Negev, the situation is slightly different.
To say the least.
yes, there are cultural barriers, but not only a cultural barrier. Let's just think about the fact that we are talking about large space, a huge area with lack of transportation for even women who wants, and I know there are hundreds of women that are willing to work, looking for jobs, but the fact that transportation, it's not organized enough. It's a barrier. Also, lack of daycares.
And lack of daycares? No, you cannot stress that enough. But being a working mom, I know what that means, is daycares for the children. Listen, Doctor, I want to thank you for being with us. It's the only time, the little time that we have. Do stay with us. First, the news when you get back, Jerusalem Pride Parade. I-24 News on this July 30th. Yes, July is ending, Amikov.
Finally.
Finally. I know. Unbelievable. The month that we thought would never end. And actually, it's a month that has a lot of significance in many places in the world, but one of them being actually in Jerusalem, the holy city. Stay with us on this one. This afternoon, thousands of rainbow flag-waving demonstrators will walk through the streets of Jerusalem to mark the city's 14th annual March for Pride and Tolerance. Unlike Pride events the world over, most notably here in Israel, actually in Tel Aviv, a place well known to celebrate a Pride Week in the summer. You know, if you are following, then several weeks ago we saw a mass amount of people arriving to the Tel Aviv Pride Parade that takes place every year. Jerusalem is a little less known, but a lot more controversial. The events in Jerusalem are more demonstrations than celebrations, because Jerusalem, soaked in history and religious, and that's a mild understatement, is far more conservative than its hip young rival on the coast. And many members of the LGBTQ community feel they are marching to raise awareness, if not only just to survive and maintain their identity in that holy city, and to increase tolerance, something that's very important. Joining us live from Independence Park in Jerusalem is I-24 News correspondent Gabriella Weiniger. Gabby, good morning to you.
Good morning, Yael. What you said was right. This is really a serious political march and not a festival-like celebration. And to prove that, police are already here quite early, and they're gearing up for security ahead of the Pride Parade. To find out why, let's take a look at this report I made earlier. For the past 13 years, Jerusalem has hosted its own gay Pride Parade. Unlike the marches held in Tel Aviv, this is less a celebration of gay rights than a defiant protest to achieve them.
Jerusalem is a bit different from Tel Aviv. In Tel Aviv, you can be open in every place, in every time. In Jerusalem, every time you walk with your partner, you need to think if it's okay to hold his hand.
Jerusalem, the spiritual center of the world, holy to Christians, Jews, and Muslims. Demonstrations there do not pass unnoticed or unopposed. Since its inception in 2002, the parade has survived municipal bans, multiple postponements, and even violence. The worst case in 2005, when an ultra-Orthodox Jewish man stabbed 3 parade participants. He was charged with attempted murder. In recent years, the parade has passed off with relative quiet. Even so, small counter-demonstrations of ultra-Orthodox and right-wingers are always expected, and not just from the public, but also from politicians.
God hates this parade. It's against the Bible, it's against our Torah parade that is desecrating the holiness of Jerusalem.
This year's protest is dedicated to the transgender struggle, and there could be no better time. It's been a milestone year for the community worldwide. In Israel, the Labour Court ruled gender identity-related discrimination to be illegal. But in Jerusalem, the reality is still far removed from the law.
Living in Jerusalem means continuing the struggle, the fight. I continue to have unpleasant experiences from different sectors, including from people on duty, which means that there's still no acceptance.
The demonstration is a call for tolerance, openness, and freedom in what is often touted as a complex and divided city. While thousands of people will march this year, many others may still stand against it.
Joining us also, as we said, live from Jerusalem, Gabby Weiniger, who brought us this report. Today, as we mentioned, is the day that Jerusalem is going to mark Pride Week with that parade that is largely, Gabby Weiniger with us from Jerusalem, it is largely symbolic, isn't it?
That's right, it really is. And actually, to explain a little bit more about that, I'm joined by the chairperson of the Jerusalem Open House for Pride and Tolerance, Dana Sharon. Dana, thank you so much for joining us. Can you say, how symbolic is this protest?
I wouldn't use symbolic necessarily. It is definitely very, very political. This is the capital city of Israel, known to be one of the more conservative cities in Israel. This pride is immensely important, more so maybe than other parades we see around Israel and around the world.
So why, okay, there are prides in Tel Aviv, there are prides all around Western cities. Why do you need two prides? Why in Jerusalem?
We have more than two prides in Israel. We have many prides in cities all over the country, which I think is amazing, important, and phenomenal.
Do you not see it as a provocation?
Not at all. This is a completely legitimate, important, heartfelt protest against the way society, the heteronormative society, refers to the pride community.
How do you feel about the right-wing opposition that you're faced? Do you feel that the LGBT community need to take a political stance to stand against much of the right wing who come and oppose? We just heard from Baruch Marzel, a politician who stood very strongly against gay rights. Do you feel any need for the LGBT community to take a stance politically?
I think we are talking about politically in the more broad sense of the term. The protest, Marzel and the Lehava activists are putting together is homophobic, hateful, misogynistic, and very ignorant. I think we are taking a stand against it. Pride and Pride Parade are a very strong stand against it.
Given that this is such a conservative city, who is actually going to come and attend today? Will there be Jerusalemites or people coming from across the world? In Tel Aviv, there are up to 30,000 tourists coming from across the world. It's a renowned gay-friendly place. Do you feel the same way about Jerusalem? Who will actually be coming today?
We don't see that many tourists. We see a lot of local people, a lot of young people, a lot of our youth groups. We see a lot of the religious communities that are either the gay religious communities or the supportive religious communities. I think, in a way, this is much more local and also much more diverse.
And how diverse? How many people can we expect? And will any Palestinian people be here today?
We are expecting, I think, between the 4,000 to the 5,000 people. Not very large, however, very effective. I cannot say about our Palestinian allies because of the complications with the political situation and the occupation. They are welcome, however.
Gabi, I have a question, actually. Gabi, Gabi, because I'm jumping into your interview, I know. Are they concerned for their safety? And because you traveled there this morning on the way to Jerusalem, how much security is planned? And if you don't mind asking if there are concerns for their actual physical safety, because as you mentioned, in the past, it was quite, in 2005, people were actually injured.
Yes, that's right. The anchor Yael just asked if you are concerned for your safety at all, and are you coordinating with the police to ensure your safety?
We are not at all concerned for our safety. The police department here, I have nothing but praises for them. They have worked so hard. They're so in sync with us. It feels like this is their personal project to make sure Pride every year is executed in the best way possible without any harm to any of the marchants or anyone else.
We were reading some initial reports about vandalism this morning. Do you have any more information on that?
I'm afraid I do not.
Okay, let's hope that it's going to be a quiet and peaceful and tolerant day here today. Back to you, Yael.
Gabi, thank you very much. As you said, let's hope it is quiet. And as mentioned, this is very much a political statement, very much a political march, but one that really has its place in this country as well. Thank you. It is the time
Is it?
It's the time.
Is it that time already?
It's that time of day. It's time of day.
Gee, that happened fast.
I know that happened fast. Ami Kaufman, the man, the burgundy bow tie, the viral spiral that is the web review.
That is me. That is me. Are you
It's
ready?
Thursday. Yes,
Are you sitting down?
I'm sitting down.
Okay.
Okay, yes.
Remember we talked yesterday about Cecil the lion that was killed in
Yes,
Zimbabwe?
that was awful
This is
story.
still totally dominating the news and the web, especially the web. Walter Palmer, the dentist from Minnesota,
pays $50,000
$50,000
to
to
go
kill
kill
a 13-year-old male lion in Zimbabwe. Now, apparently he had to actually close his clinic yesterday.
Good.
First of all, his Facebook page was closed, his Yelp page was closed. Now he has to physically close his clinic. I want to show you something that Jimmy Kimmel said on his show last night. He really actually took this personally, it looks like. Let's see what Jimmy Kimmel has to say.
Let's have a listen to Jimmy Kimmel Late Night on ABC.
I mean, I'm honestly curious to know why a human being would feel compelled to do that. How is that fun? Is it that difficult for you to get an erection that you need to kill things that are stronger than you? If that's the case, they have a pill for that. It works great.
Bravo. You know,
No, because I mean, we had the same discussion. Why?
Why? No, there's no explanation, is there? There's
yeah. Is it that difficult for you to get a yes?
Jimmy Kimmel actually later on, he was actually choking back some tears. He really took this
But I
bad.
agree. You know, you said that. I think I shook my head. I had a moment of not being able to speak. Not to mention, it's just really, it's so sad for mankind that there are, you know, that our species gets its kicks.
Yeah.
Out of, you know, going out and killing animals or each other. I think that explains many wars.
You know, you got to read the language that this dentist was using. He said, "I had no idea that the lion I took was a known local favorite." Jimmy Kimmel says, "The lion you took? Took is the word? You take aspirin.
Killed.
You killed your lion."
Yeah. Okay.
On to a different late night
I'm
show.
just finishing this really quickly. Do you really want that to be your dentist? Do you think it?
Not at all.
Yes, not at all. Yes.
Okay, Conan O'Brien is being sued for stealing jokes from, allegedly stealing jokes from a man called Robert Alex Casper, who posts sometimes his jokes on Twitter. And this is a guy who actually used to write for the Tonight Show, Jay Leno's Tonight Show, and he posted stuff on the web, on Twitter, and stuff like that. Let's see, one of the jokes that he wrote went like this. Listen to this. Okay. A Delta flight this week took off from Cleveland to New York with just 2 passengers, and they fought over control of the armrest of the entire flight. As you can see in this pic here, this is what Conan did. On Monday, a Delta flight from Cleveland to New York took off with just 2 passengers, yet somehow they spent the whole flight fighting over the armrest. Identical.
Identical.
I want to show you. I want to show you.
It's not even, you know, it's not a play off a joke. It's identical. Yes.
Another one that Casper wrote. The Washington Monument is 10 inches shorter than previously thought. You know the winter has been cold when the monument suffered from shrinkage. Look at this one from Conan. Surveyors announced that the Washington Monument is 10 inches shorter than what's been recorded. Of course, the monument is blaming the shrinkage on the cold weather.
How sad.
Extremely similar.
Extremely similar. Yeah.
Now, you know, I don't know if this is if it's going to win this lawsuit because.
It raises a fascinating question. Things online out there in this age of social media and sharing. Who does it belong to? You know, if you put yourself out there and you put a status,
I've done that. You know, I consider myself a pretty funny guy.
Yes.
And I put some stuff on.
Yeah, you put some stuff.
I put some stuff, and I've later seen it, you know, with other people. But you know, people have the same thoughts. It's not that we're all really original. You know,
it's not that we're all really original. It's very, you know, it's very bizarre. What do? You can't on live television really say that I'm sharing this Twitter post.
Exactly.
You know, what do you do? But yeah.
Anyway, I want to show you a viral video. This is coming from Brazil, and this actually happens a lot in Israel as well. You know, with these bike lanes, people put their cars in the middle of a bike lane, and you can't ride anywhere. Let's see what happened with a pretty big guy on his bike, what he did.
Take a look.
Caramba, velho. Aê! Aê!
Sobre aprender a não parar em ciclovia, mano.
Aê! Certinho!
Nossa, não pode ficar parando assim mesmo.
Aê!
He got on his bike. Pixar didn't happen.
Or it did not happen. Wow.
That guy just got angry and picked up the car and moved it. Yeah, I wish I could do that.
Yes. Don't you have mornings that you feel that you can?
Sometimes.
At the table. Just kidding. Okay.
San Francisco officials are starting to paint walls with pea-proof paint. Can I say that? Pea-proof paint because there's a urination problem. Problem in discos and clubs,
and it just really
and people just drunk.
Yeah, it ruins the paint.
Now they're taking the idea. They're taking the idea from the city of Hamburg, which is we have a video that the city of Hamburg actually shows how they do it. Let's take a look.
Let's take a look.
And
wir haben im ganzen Viertel oft heimgesuchte Wände mit superhydrophoben Lack beschichtet. Dieser Lack ist so wasserabweisend, dass Flüssigkeit von der Oberfläche regelrecht abprallt.
That is perfect.
It splashes back on him.
It splashes back on. Forget it. I want that for my home. No, really. No, I have a 2-year-old who's trying to get rid
so
of
you
peppers.
have a urination problem in your home?
No, that's not me. Okay, not me. For a really good friend of mine.
Look at that though. It splashes back.
Look at that. That's fabulous. It splashes back at you. It's like it's the perfect. First of all, it's the perfect. I think payback if you're going to.
Right.
But what about dogs? Can you think
that's
about
a good.
No,
that's
what
a good
about
point.
the dogs?
That's
Look
a good
at that.
point.
Think about it. The dog's like, what is going on?
Or if you walk your dog and then you have to bring him back and give him a bath.
That's animal abuse. Bring in the dentist.
You're right. That's a good point. I don't know if San Francisco's thinking about that.
One last one.
Grumpy Cat. You remember?
I love Grumpy Cat.
He has a competitor now, and it's a dog. He's called Earl the Grumpy Puppy. Look at that.
Okay. Grumpy Cat has another competitor.
Yeah, we have another pic of him just to show.
Yeah, really
good.
Ah,
there you go.
That looks a little bit like me.
So there's competition there for.
There is competition.
Grumpy Cat.
Yeah, Grumpy Cat is still rules.
He still rules by far, but this guy's getting a lot of followers on Instagram.
Okay. And, lovely. Ami Kaufman, that was very important news.
Hey, don't laugh. That was important news. Don't be cynical.
The no pee paint thingy, yeah, definitely. Do stay with us when we get back. Culture, ladies and gentlemen, definitely. Do stay with us. Culture coming up first, as in every morning, the morning headlines. News on this July 30th in this very, very, very hot summer that actually is also a Thursday, which means that the week is ending.
Yes. And we can stay in the AC all weekend. We don't need to leave the house.
That's your comeback?
Yeah.
That's your comeback?
That's
the saddest comeback.
What? You want to come? You want to go to the beach in a 40-degree heat?
No, I do not.
You know, Avi, I'm sorry, but your opinion is like an orphan's birthday. Nobody cares.
Sorry.
How long did you have how many weeks?
It was a good one.
I think for the past 3 weeks he's been holding it in, waiting for the opportunity.
Wait, we have an audience, okay? I need to speak to my mother. So I'm losing my words. Avri Rosenzweig.
Good morning.
At 24 News. Cultural.
I don't know what's going on here. I don't know what's going on here. We're actually talking about.
Yes, Avri Rosenzweig with the culture news. I'm good. Yeah.
We actually have not such a funny item. She's crying, people. Let's zoom in.
I'm good.
Okay.
Yes.
We're talking about. Oh my God.
No, I'm good. Yes, we're talking about what? It's not funny.
The end of the tour, a new film. About, oh my God, David Foster Wallace.
David Foster Wallace.
Wow, okay.
That brought the room down.
That brought me back. Yes, yeah. David Foster Wallace.
A new film coming out about David Foster Wallace, the end of the tour. Starring Jason Segel as David Foster Wallace.
Really?
And Jesse Eisenberg as David Lipsky's. He's a journalist who went with him on his final tour a few months before he committed suicide in 2008. And we have a bit of the VTR of the trailer. Let's watch.
Let's watch.
If we ate like this all the time, what would be wrong with that?
It's like good, seductive commercial entertainment, like Die Hard.
First Die Hard?
First Die Hard.
Great film.
Yes, no, it's a brilliant film.
The best.
Hey, isn't it reassuring to have a lot of people read you?
I think if the book is about anything, it's about the question of why. Why am I doing it? And what's so American about what I'm doing?
What I love about Jason Segel, I have to say, it's this transformation from, what was it, Freaks and Geeks, remember?
Freaks and Geeks.
A very comedic entity, becoming a really good dramatic actor.
He was a good dramatic actor in that show. If you remember, he played such a flunky sort of guy. It was a very interesting character. He was like a guy.
I know, but the depth.
But yeah, he became. I think this is his first really dramatic role. You know, getting into the shoes of this beloved author. We should mention he wrote a few books, Infinite Jest among them. Like he's most like beloved.
An amazing creator, an amazing author, a literary tragic figure that I think anybody in the modern world today knows. And it's, the Lipsky-Wallace interview, apropos. Yeah. It's just interesting to see what also they think about it in, I think in journalistic areas after this film comes out.
Yeah, it's interesting. Well, the movie is getting very good reviews, but it's surrounded a little bit by controversy because the Wallace estate did not sort of authorize them to make a movie. They didn't want a movie.
Really?
They didn't want a movie made about him. They say that he would not have wanted
a movie. I tend to agree.
Yeah. But even the book, even the end of the Turin itself is a bit of a problematic book. I have read it a few years ago, and it adds to the very mythologization of Wallace that led to that alienation he felt towards the end of his life.
Or classic.
And it's part of the criticism that this movie is getting, that that it's sort of being too reverent towards Wallace, which is the thing he didn't want. He didn't
exactly
want.
What he wanted, but
this wisdom sprouting icon,
Yeah. Glenn Kenny, him in some ways.
Yeah.
Care-wracking him.
Glenn Kenny at The Guardian wrote, why the end of the tour isn't really about my friend David Foster Wallace. He says, it's not just that the Wallace literary estate objected to the film, though there is that. The script, the angle, Siegel's performance, it gets everything wrong. He says that they're sort of like, they're sort of missing the point.
And we'll wrap it quickly in terms of that theme. I think it's this million-dollar question of, in order to actually bring somebody to the bigger audience, you have to commercialize their life story, which is exactly what he would not have wanted. But is it the right thing to do? Yes or no?
He kind of. It's not nice to say, but he contributed to his own myth by committing suicide in a way.
No, of course.
So inconsiderate of him.
It's his fault, but
no, it's not his fault.
It's the way we treat suicides of artists.
But we've also it's not new that we turn our artists into icons and into characters, and he couldn't deal with that. I guess Kurt Cobain had a similar problem. Is it the price of fame? It's hard to tell, but
or one can also take it to the line and really that in order to become an artist, whatnot, you also have to not a tortured soul. You're a very sensitive person.
And he was always dealing with depression
and whatnot,
dealing with imbalance.
And part of it, writing is part of therapy into that. But moving along, because it is Thursday, and I did laugh in the beginning.
We're doing a 180 to talk about Will Ferrell.
Yes.
I think the three of us can agree, a comedy genius, Will Ferrell. He's now doing a new HBO series called Ferrell Takes the Field, in which he's taking on all the parts of baseball players in different and we can say, pun intended, that it comes out of left field. It's a weird project.
It's very bizarre.
But he's known for weird projects. We'll talk about this. Let's watch a bit of the trailer and come back.
Trailer, yes.
My career has not gone according to plan. When I first showed up on the A's doorstep, I thought I'd be an A for life. But then I was a Mariner, and then a Red. A Diamondback, an Angel, a Cub, a White Sox, a Padre, a Dodger.
Yes.
Will Ferrell, he revels in doing weird projects. A few years ago he did a show called Like Kling. Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
He did a show called The Spoils of Babylon a few years ago, which was the weirdest thing that you could ever see.
And the film in Spanish.
He did a film in Casa de Mi Padre. He has a series of commercials for Old Milwaukee beer that only aired in Middle America. Weird commercials where he just walks and talks.
As a joke or as a
no? That's the thing. There's no real. He's sort of Andy Kaufmaning, mainstream.
It's kind of like Colbert, hosting that local television show.
He takes it further. Recently, 2 weeks ago, he did a Lifetime movie called A Deadly Adoption, which drew in 6 million total.
I'm not laughing here. Yeah.
He drew in 6 million viewers. Now,
Deadly Adoption.
A Deadly Adoption.
With Kristen Wiig.
With Kristen Wiig. Now, the thing is,
perfect.
It was totally a straight Lifetime movie. It was a totally serious.
Straightforward, serious.
It was a straightforward Lifetime movie in which they adopt.
It wasn't really like just funny.
No. And
that's why it's funny.
Extremely funny because it's Will Ferrell and Kristen Wiig with these dialogues that are totally Lifetime dialogues.
Well, it's also Lifetime making fun of itself, of course.
Yes, in many ways.
Of course, which they have a few interesting things right now, Lifetime. But
wait, I had an idea. Yes, quickly.
But yeah, it's Will Ferrell sort of doing things that nobody understands or expects, and it becomes very, very funny.
In itself, it's funny. It is the time in the show to move to Kling, okay? Because he's sitting. I just had an idea.
We have to?
No,
we
have to. We
Okay,
must.
sorry.
But I had an idea that maybe sometime down the line, and we're promising it to our audience, we should do the segment of this in this show as a Lifetime movie with dialogues.
I'm down. I'm down. I am so down.
There we go. Okay, Kling. With anything and everything that was horrific in the past this week.
Not horrific at all.
This week in history.
All right. So really not horrific at all.
Amen
I think.
to that.
We have a little bit of ours down the line, but first, let's go to 1946. August 1st is the birthday of American rock icon Jerry Garcia, leader of the Grateful Dead.
The Grateful Dead.
Really an amazing band with an insane legacy. They have only a few months ago played their final concert.
They keep promising that.
No, really, I believe them this time.
You do? Okay.
Nearly a decade after Garcia's passing, which is, by the way, in 10 days, on August 9th, it's 20 years since his death.
Since his death. Wow, it's been 20 years.
It's been 20 years.
Wow.
It died in 90s.
I'm so old.
Who's playing in his part? Who's playing his part in the concerts?
But with the Grateful Dead,
exactly. They're very interchangeable. But they were joined by a lot of people. They were joined by his name eludes me, but the singer from Fish.
Yeah.
Which is also,
cult band.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the Grateful Dead, I think it's a really interesting question because I'm of the generation that loved them and used to follow them. Are you a Dead? So it's probably used to following them around right now. But at the end of the day, and I don't want to ruffle any feathers here, unless you're high, a Grateful Dead, every song sounds the same, don't you think? Many people actually trail back the drug. Well, never mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm moving ahead with that. Yeah.
I think a lot of songs by many bands actually sound kind of the same.
You're trying to claim you're no longer high.
But just one point.
But yes.
Just one last point to make about Garcia. I think he is the inventor of sort of a new perspective in rock and roll, which is sort of like the sagey, wise character, which is not really a rock voice that existed before him.
No, before him. He's the caterpillar on the mushroom in Alice in Wonderland.
Like the wise observer, and that's not a perspective that existed in rock
Yeah.
before, and that's sort of his own thing.
Well, here to Jerry Garcia. Moving on.
All right. July 29th, 1976 was the first killing made by Son of Sam, David Berkowitz.
Wow.
Yeah, first of 6. This
Son of Sam.
A unique serial killer in many ways. One of the interesting points about it is that he used guns, which is unusual for a serial killer.
Right.
Most, many.
And he's speaking from experience.
Yeah.
Unusual for us to.
I usually take off the head and put it in the freezer.
But Berkowitz, he had his own thing.
Yeah.
I
Unusual
appreciate it. No, but one of the first serial killers in American history to really become a pop culture icon.
True. More than the San Francisco. What was the name of the San Francisco Zodiac killer?
And we're seeing the trailer for the very good Spike Lee movie about that summer.
Yes,
about that summer, which is very interesting.
Sam.
The paranoia, it's very good.
Yeah, the sounds like a great film.
And of course, his subsequent capture and trial, the letter he sent to the authorities where he referred to himself as both Son of Sam and Mr. Monster. And
just
of
to
course,
claim some pride here, I think he was Jewish.
Yeah. One of ours, am I right?
And good at marketing. He was good at marketing himself.
Yeah, and of course made the unforgettable final point where he claimed that the murders were he was forced to kill by his neighbor's dog, who was possessed possessed by a demon, which is just
it always works
amazing,
for them.
right?
Yes, and...
All right, let's go back to August 1st, this time 1981, is the day MTV began broadcasting
Really?
Yes.
This week in history, MTV came to. Wow.
Yeah. One of my favorite trivia facts. Do you know the first video MTV broadcasted? Go ahead.
Yes.
Yes. It was Video Killed the Radio
That's right.
Star.
The Buggles, and of course.
And what a genius idea! And
Genius idea.
Genius, simple, genius. Yeah,
such a middle finger in the face, right?
Yeah, that song, that video. No.
Yeah, that's it. That's the radio star. Yeah, there it is.
Kill the radio star.
But of course, you know, MTV didn't end with videos.
No, MTV ended with the real world.
With the real world, indeed. Yeah. And, you know, to me, it was such a beacon of youth culture. And I grew up on Beavis and Butthead, of course.
I'm about to ask you, but were you both even alive in 1981?
No. I was not alive in 1981, but I was alive shortly thereafter.
I was born in 1982.
Yes, okay.
And I did grow up.
But we grew up on
of course,
MTV. Grew up on this legacy.
I grew up on MTV, and especially, you know, when I was a teenager in the late 90s.
Video generation, late 90s.
Not only the video generation, but also the MTV cartoons.
Right.
And
Beavis and
primarily
Butthead.
Beavis and Butthead, which
honestly,
I think we have. I think we have a bit of Beavis and Butthead.
You would do Beavis and Butthead, quickly.
Give us some Beavis and Butthead.
These are the most dangerous men in America. I want these faces in front of every Fed and two-bit sheriff within 1,000 miles.
Get the hell out of the cockpit!
You Fed.
Now!
And do an entire nation.
Whoa, check out what TV.
I think I found the remote.
No, was that laugh?
There is that and then Mike Judge, a brilliant creator to
Mike
this day.
Judge, brilliant. It's true, and of course, you know, one thing to say about Beavis and Butthead is that there are, of course, two teenagers watching videos on MTV, which is brilliant. I think it's brilliant and reflexive.
No, but reflexive and whatnot.
And was ahead of its time as far as, you know, meta television.
I can't beat that line. Ahead of its time when it comes to meta television. We will leave you with that very important line.
About Beavis and Butthead.
Beavis and Butthead, exactly. I-24 News Morning Edition on this Thursday. That was the show for today. Do not forget to check us out on Facebook, Twitter, all those social networks, and tune in tomorrow morning for another edition of your Morning Edition to start your day, because you get to see people like Kling. And you too, Avi. And you too. I know, you haven't.
Never been this insulted.
Yes, that was it. There we go. I think it's time to throw papers. Exactly. Let's go.